Hello everyone. Okay, so I was asked to do a video on forging your own path and ethical syncretism versus New Age melting pot. Now, this is quite an interesting subject for me to do because there have been a couple of times I've uploaded videos on something initially along the lines to this. However, for some reason I've just deleted it and just thought, no, I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to, sort of include that in it. So there will be times I cross over, although it is extremely, it's extremely vital what I am saying that's going along to this question or to the thing asked for me to do. Now, in terms of traditional witchcraft, we all know that some forms of traditional witchcraft are younger than Wicca, like the 1734 witchcraft clan of Tubal Cain. We all know that that's a younger practice. Obviously Robert Cochrane claimed for it to have been older, but a lot of people know that Robert Cochrane sometimes did used to trick people, and there are various things that happened that he sort of screwed up, basically, that he had made up, and it had been proved that he had made those allegations up and stuff like that. It had been proved. So there are various witchcraft traditions that are younger than Wicca, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. For instance, there are various witchcraft traditions, traditional witchcraft traditions that are older, a little bit older, or maybe along the same line. As we know, traditional witchcraft is a reconstructionalist path. It's a reconstruction. It involves reconstructionalism, and the thing is, within traditional witchcraft there are certain things that we do. There are set things that we do, but of course it's pretty much, here's how you sort of go into the underworld, or here's how you start a spell, here's what to do if you want to build energy up. The rest is kind of yours. There are elements there where we can be free. There are elements there where we can incorporate our own techniques and our own methods of working. And that's absolutely fine. There are methods of traditional witchcraft that are very young. Laying the compass, treading the mill, that's only 60 years old, if that. It's based off things that obviously go much older, but the actual methods themselves, the sort of version we have now is very young. But then there are things in traditional witchcraft that are traditional and that do go way back. For instance, the use of familiar spirits, housing them in earthenware jars, feeding them blood, sacrificial offerings of blood. We know through witch trials, through documents, that is very old. That's a very old practice. For instance, the use of flying ointment. Witches incorporating the use of flying ointment into their practice. Traditional witches today still use that. Obviously without the baby fat, I hope. But nevertheless, the witch's ladder, the feared witch's ladder is used. Blasting rods as well. Blasting rods were found in chimneys in sort of farmhouses along early 19th century, late Victorian century. We can see that, a blackthorn blasting rod, and that still goes on today. For instance, the use of stangs as well, stangs and broomsticks incorporating into witchcraft, cord magic and knot magic. Witches' sweepers, witches' whisks, these things do go back. They do go back pre-Wicca, and they are heavily associated with traditional witchcraft, and they are old. Maybe the methods that we use may be more new or maybe sort of contemporary, but however, we do still incorporate that into there. In fact, the majority of practices aren't really that changed. Now, of course, you're gonna forge your own path. You will. It's a path where it's reconstructionalist. So there are various things in which we may sort of incorporate various techniques from different cultures and different backgrounds. That's absolutely fine. I think that is absolutely fine. However, I do greatly believe that you should always have respect for the culture and always have respect for the background in which you're taking it from. So, for instance, you can, if somebody employs the use of cigar smoke to bless somebody and say, yes, this is traditional European witchcraft, when you got it from Mexico, Brujeria, it's not fair. It's not fair on that culture. It's not fair on that practice as well. You can't take something and employ it as traditional witchcraft. You can't just do that because, again, that's not fair to that practice. So, of course, you may notice when I made that witch powder, I mentioned that the formula that I used, sorry, I'm stammering on my words now, the formula used did involve things that, to me, made me remember of a hoodoo powder in which you use, and so I made a mention of that because, of course, we all know that camphor isn't Cornish. We all know that dragon's blood isn't Cornish, so, as I said, being it a modern, contemporary, traditional witchcraft, we are going to incorporate things, and I think that's absolutely fine, but you need to know what you're incorporating it from, and you can't just say, yes, this is traditional witchcraft, because it's not fair. In terms of syncretism, I think there will be a crossover among other spiritistic beliefs, because traditional witchcraft does employ the use of spirits. We work heavily with spirits, morely spirits than gods. And even in some cases we see gods as, we work with them as spirits rather than as gods. So there, it's very spiritualistic. We will incorporate the use of working with the dead, with the fae folk. We work with spirits, familiar spirits. Spirit communication and spirit work in traditional witchcraft is vital. That's what it is based off of. You have a familiar spirit, you work with that spirit, you communicate with that spirit. You ask that spirit to aid you. You ask that spirit to help you, and that spirit helps you. You give that spirit offerings in return for it helping you, And, of course, there will be crossovers. There are going to be crossovers within spiritistic traditions. There's going to, because spirit work on the same line near enough. Certain spirits anyway, but they will come through on the same current, and there will be a lot of methods used that will cross over. For instance, I had done a Lammas ritual for my birthday, and one of my friends was there, and I noticed that he had, was smoking quite a lot of weed that night. We got pretty trashed, but before the ritual, he was smoking a pipe of weed and blowing it at the stang, and I took a step back and I thought, I know that practice, I know everything the way he was doing it, and after the ritual had finished, I said to him, do you know why you done that? And he said, well, no, I got told by the spirits to do that. That is what they told me to do, and it felt right, and they told me, go and do this, give this as an offering, blah, blah, blah. The spirits told me to do that. And I said, you do realise that in some traditions, Haitian voodoo, they blow cigar smoke and cigarette smoke at the statues of the Loire, or at the or at people to cleanse them and stuff like that. But it was just very, very strange the way that I saw that crossover, and that was an initial thing that happened, because it's because it was kind of cool, because he said, well, at least I know I'm on the right track, and it's true. It is true, because you're going to, as I said, because it's a spiritistic belief, there are going to be crossovers. You work with spirits, whether from one tradition or another, there will be crossovers. That it's going to happen. Spirits go on the same current near enough. Now, of course, in other cultures, we see, Cornish witchcraft, for instance. Now, of course, the modern Pella current, the modern traditional witchcraft Cornish tradition. Now, for instance, they employ the use of dragon's blood in their workings, and they use that to sort of link in and connect to the scroll energy, which is the serpentine power of the earth, and to connect to that in order to aid their workings with the energy of the earth. and they give that as almost like an offering and to connect to. But in a lot of spells as well, they add dragon's blood as well. Like dragon's blood's added quite a lot. You could use it protection, love as well, you know, but it's just a general good for connecting to the serpentine power of the earth and that scroll sort of energy. Now, of course, we all know dragon's blood is not English. Dragon's blood is not in any way, shape or form Cornish. You know, we know that's that's something that they have taken and utilised, and that's absolutely fine. You know, just know what you're taking and know that it isn't English, you know, and know that that's a modern thing you're taking. And I mean, if it's a method that works, and if it's a method that does gain access to the scroll energy of the earth, so be it. Go for it. Incorporate that into your practice. You know, do what feels right to you. Just always know the facts. Always do your research. Always know the facts. For instance, if I was working with a particular spirit, say, for instance, voodoo, I was working with a Zillifreda and I gave her red because I was like, yeah, she likes red, that feels right. No, you know, do your research. Know that actually red will completely infuriate a Zillifreda and completely upset her, you know. And as again, you can't just go into a culture, go into a practice and be like, right, this is what happens now and this is how it goes. That's not fair. You know, years and years of study, years of practice, years of research, and you're going to try and change all that and make it very eclectic. And, you know, I mean, it's fine to be eclectic again, but just recognize and realize what you're taking from and what it is exactly that you're utilizing. You know, for other instances, I'm trying to think, again, in Cornish witchcraft, you use camphor as well. And of course, we all know camphor doesn't come from England. We all know that, and it is in no way, shape or form Cornish. However, that is something that they have just picked up and they have utilized, and that's fine. You know, that's absolutely fine. But know that, of course, I mean, of course, in a practice, if things are, you know, right, and if things are there and they do that purpose that you're looking to, yeah, take, you know, work with them, incorporate them into your practice, so be it. Do it. I do, and it works. The stuff I do works, and because I incorporate, you know, because I use and utilize various different resins, herbs, powders, even though they may not be English, I'm going to utilize them if they have the same magical properties of what I am trying to achieve. Now, of course, in other cultures we see crossovers. For instance, I recently saw a video, and I think it was Mexican, and it was I think it was Mexican, and it was a coven of traditional witches, traditional European witchcraft, and it was so cool. It was really cool, and it was really interesting to see their own interpretation of that craft. It was really interesting to see the various things they've done. The altars were amazing. The altars were beautifully done, and well, not beautifully done, but very rustic, very sort of almost quite macabre, which I like. I mean, personally, if there's an altar, I kind of like it to look a bit macabre. That's just what I'm like. I'm a little bit dark like that, you know. I like dark and macabre. Sorry. You know, but it was just interesting to see their own incorporation of that, their own interpretation, you know. And they work with the spirits of the earth and the ancestors and the horned god as well. And they had a goat skull with a hexagram put upon it with a red candle set between the horns, and they had a stang and brooms and stuff like that, mandragora, you know, roots in coffins, and you know, and their offerings as well. That it was really interesting. Their offerings were exotic fruits that they got in Mexico. And of course, think it through. You know, if you're going to work with European spirits, what best offering to give them than something that isn't in England, that's something that's different, something that's exotic. You know, it's going to be a lot more honoured and a lot more favoured. Thinking about it, you know. So, as I said, it's fine. I think it's absolutely fine to incorporate things into witchcraft. Just know what it comes from, know where it comes from, and don't take it and say this is this is traditional English witchcraft, when really you've just taken a recipe from another practice and stolen it and not said. For instance, I use hoodoo. I work hoodoo, I work conjure, and during those two practices, I keep them completely separate. And I'd consider myself to be quite sort of pigeonholed to tradition. And I do. A lot of people say it's really bad to do, but no, that's how I work, and that's absolutely fine. If I am doing hoodoo, I'm doing hoodoo. If I am doing traditional witchcraft, I'm doing traditional witchcraft. I do not mix and intertwine the two. I don't do that, because they're good enough traditions by themselves. If they wasn't, they wouldn't exist. They are good enough traditions by themselves. They both work. They're both valid. They're both magically accurate. Why intertwine that? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, of course, whenever I do conjure work, root work, and hoodoo, I keep it completely separate from traditional witchcraft. And I think it should be kept completely separate. I kind of hope I've covered and done this question and, various things like that. But of course, as I said, there are things I've put and incorporated into this because of a subject like being ethical and knowing what you're taking, when you incorporate various things, knowing what you're taking from and what culture and what belief you're taking from. I think that's a big thing for me. I mean, I don't like, being honest as well, like I wouldn't lay a compass and call a voodoo spirit. Why would you do that? I'll lay a compass and call my familiar spirit, or I'll lay a compass and call a fetch that I'm working with, or I'll lay a compass and call the witch god or the master or the bucker. Again, if I think you should keep traditions completely separate from each other. Odd things, as I said, like burning dragon's blood and stuff like that in your rites to sort of connect to the land and stuff like that, it's absolutely fine. That's fine. Just know that isn't traditional witchcraft, that's a method you've taken from that has been adapted by traditional witches, but it's not particularly traditional witchcraft. I know this is a really long video, I'm really sorry, but yeah, over and out, and I hope it helps. Peace.